Hey guys, welcome back to the Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. I'm your host, Sana, and today on the show we have Suzannah, a feminist writer and sexologist who wrote this incredible book, Subjectified, which I have been diving into, as you can tell. I am just so excited to have her on the show to share her story and her wisdom and some nuggets of inspiration for all of us who feel like we're disconnected from our own bodies. We don't have control over our own sexuality. And it sounds like Suzannah has gone through a beautiful reclamation of her own sexuality. So, Suzannah, welcome. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm so excited to share all that you have for us today. First off, how does somebody get into this world of becoming a sexologist, this writer, talking all about sex? Like, what was that journey like for you?
The way I started was in 2015. I was working in marketing and I was bored, so I decided to do something on the side and just started writing articles about my own life. And a lot of that centered around dating and feminism and body image. And then I happened to be laid off from my job, which I see as a gift just as that was picking up. And I started writing about sex and relationships. And a few years after that, I realized I wanted to work more with people instead of just being behind a screen. So I did a few sex educator training programs. I also did training in sexological body work, which is kind of a more woo-woo, hands-on sex education, which I don't practice but learned a lot from. I got a master's degree in sexual health. So on the professional side of things, that was my journey. On the personal side, I was motivated by a few things. One was, as I write in the book, my journey overcoming an eating disorder, largely through learning how to redefine sexuality on my own terms, as well as until I was 25, I'd never had an orgasm with a partner. And then after learning to do that myself, I decided I wanted to help other people with similar
Wow.
issues.
So, not being able to have an orgasm until you're 25, what does that look and feel like when you are in high school and college and everyone's talking about sex? What was that experience like for you?
Well, it's not that I didn't have an orgasm until I was 25. It's that I didn't have an
With a
orgasm with a
partner?
partner. I think I was actually precocious in terms of I started masturbating at 11 and but it's actually this is part of what my second book's about, which comes out next year. It's very normalized for women not to orgasm, so I didn't think that much
Yes.
of it. Like a lot of
Mm,
my friends just said just enjoy the journey. And I thought that that was the best that I could do. I think I settled for that because I didn't know exactly how to communicate my needs and a variety of other factors. Yeah, and then it was very liberating once I realized, wait, I've been missing out on this whole time.
For people who do now still struggle with having an orgasm with a partner, maybe they're scared of speaking and sharing what they want and need. How do you walk people through that now?
Number one, think of what you do when you masturbate. You probably, if you can orgasm through masturbation, then you probably want to imitate that with a partner. So if you orgasm through clitoral stimulation through masturbation, it doesn't make sense to expect that your first orgasms with a partner will be through penetration. They might be, but the more effective technique usually is to teach your partner how to touch you the way that you touch yourself. So you might even show them, you might give them verbal directions. And for me, a lot of it was also giving myself permission to do things like fantasize, even though I don't want to be fantasizing all the time when I'm with a partner. I was just like, do whatever you do alone. So I fantasized, I like moved in the exact angle that I did by myself and just gave myself permission to do everything that I needed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Where do you think it comes from for women to not have the confidence that men have? Like, why is sexuality just so different for men versus women?
Because women are taught myths about their own bodies and sexuality. We're taught that we do not want sex as much, that as long as we are receiving an emotional relationship, then we should be satisfied, almost like it's a trade. Like we are offering physical pleasure in exchange for emotional stability, or sometimes even for financial stability, and that our bodies are just less capable of experiencing pleasure, and we internalize these myths and we think it's normal.
And what are your thoughts on contradicting all of that?
I don't know if I think that women are more sexual than men, but I think we're definitely at least as sexual. I think actually, if you think about it, like we're taught that, the man has desire and the woman responds to it. In my experience, it's usually the opposite. Like in most of my relationships, usually like I've noticed
Same.
the person first and like had all kinds of like sexual thoughts about them first. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I could see that.
That's
So,
awesome.
for whatever reason, we've just created this lie, I think to maintain some kind of power structure or some kind of
Mm.
separation between men and women, to teach them like, oh yeah, it's the man's job to feel the desire for the woman, and then the woman responds to that. It just deprives women of the ability to go after anything they want, and that ultimately keeps us apart from each other.
Have you seen any connections through women, how they are and how they act in the bedroom versus like other aspects of their life, whether it's like at work or in their personal relationships, or just like, is there any correlation there?
I write about this a bit in the chapter on consent, which is chapter 5, about women being able to make the first move and how this translates to other areas. When people make the first move in any realm, whether it's like reaching out to a company you want to work for or applying to a school you want to go to, usually it's the person who initiates the deal that gets a better deal, because they're the person who is curating what it is that they want, as opposed to just letting whatever comes to them come to them. So personally, I noticed a correlation between being able to be the pursuer romantically and sexually, and being able to pursue opportunities in my work life or in my social life more broadly.
Is there a practice or a way that you teach this for women to like how to begin using their voice in the bedroom and beyond? Like if a woman is like completely detached and unfamiliar with speaking up and sharing her desires, or like even backtracking to like even knowing that she has desires, like what is that process like to get a woman to return to her desires and then have the confidence to speak it and share it?
If someone's not aware of their desires, it starts with embodiment, and that might involve embodiment exercises, like just learning to tune into your body through your breath, deep breathing, bringing awareness to different parts of your body, masturbating, like touching yourself in a way where you're very mindful, you're not tuning out with porn, but you're paying attention to every touch, even around your full body, not just your genitals. I teach a class called Living Life Orgasmically, which is
Mm.
about this, where I teach women things to do outside the bedroom that they can bring in the bedroom. I give assignments like in the morning when you're getting ready, put on a song and dance, or when you're in the shower, pay close attention to how the water feels against your skin. The more that we can be mindful of what we're feeling in our bodies, the more that we come back to ourselves and we could feel what we want and what we don't. That also ties into consent, because the more in tune you are with your body and your feelings, the less likely you can lie to yourself. It just feels bad. Once you know what you want and don't want, it's really hard to not say what you want,
Mm.
just because you can feel it. Just feels like, oh, like I'm betraying myself. And so it really just starts with getting aware of your body and your emotions.
What about the people that don't even know what embodiment means, right? Like, what if it's like, even that, right? Something as simple as breathing and feeling and being present, right? Like, I think, because when I was reading your book, it sounds like you started your journey really young and like you were very aware of what it means to be in your body at like a younger age. Like for me, for instance, I didn't even know how to feel my feelings until I was like 32. And now I feel like I'm 30, I'm turning 35, and I'm like now realizing what embodiment truly is and what it feels like to be fully present and not constantly in my head of like, oh, what do I want? What do I like? Da, da, da. And it's like, no, just like surrender that chatter, tap into the body and be present in the moment and like feel, right? Like, what if he's doing something that you think you don't like, but you may be missing out on the actual pleasure of it because you think that's not, because it's different than like what I would be doing alone or with my own self in the moment. If somebody is not familiar with breath work and stuff, is it breath work that would bring you back into your body in the moment, like with your partner?
Breathwork is definitely helpful. Something I teach sometimes is to imagine you're sending your breath to the part of your body where you want to feel more. So if you're wanting
Mm,
to feel more in your genitals, you breathe and feel the breath go all the way down there. You can also do exercises on your own where you imagine the sensation as a balloon, and as you're breathing in, it's expanding, and you can play with spreading the sexual sensation around different parts of your body in that way. If the issue is more emotions, then I would more recommend something like mirror work, where you talk to yourself in the mirror, like, okay, what are you feeling? What do you need? And
mm.
try to talk to yourself with a compassionate voice, because then more of your feelings will feel comfortable coming out if they just feel like somebody is compassionately observing them. Journaling can also be useful for that. Inner child's work, where you imagine, when is the first time I felt this feeling? Is this coming from an earlier place? And then you could do mirror work or journal to have a conversation with your inner child. A lot of things
I love
depending
that.
what the issue
That's
is.
beautiful. Yeah, that's it. Like that's so helpful. Thank you so much. What was that like for you? How did you learn these things? Tell us a little bit about your transformation story.
Sure. So when I was ages 15 through 17, I had an eating disorder. I had been in therapy before that, but that was when I think I started realizing a lot of things about how society impacts women's body image, not just through the desire to be beautiful, but actually through the fear of being beautiful, the fear that if we are mature women and have a body that's considered curvaceous or attractive, then we'll be sexual prey and we won't be safe. And this was the theme that kept emerging at that time. And so when I was 17, I had my first hookup, and it was not the way I hear most people describe their first hookups. I met a guy on a beach and he went down on me, and I was like, wait, that's what sex is? Like, why was I taught to be afraid of this? And I wasn't raised in a sex negative household, but I just had very little sex education at all. And the sex education that our culture gives us is one that is focused on women as prey, on women as being desirable objects, and being potential victims of assault or potential victims of unwanted pregnancy or STIs. And
What
so
made you so aware of like that story of sex is like bad or it's not for women, it's for men, and it could be this like negative experience? Like, where did that story form that like sex equals negative?
I don't know. I don't think I was aware of it until I had a sexual experience that was positive and realized how different that was from what I had expected. I think it was really subtle things, like just, I remember a classmate in high school telling me, women who hook up with men, usually it's because they want to be approved of. Hearing things like that made me think women hook up, so men will like them. And that's something driven
Hmm.
by men. And I always thought it was weird because meanwhile I was at home masturbating like every day. Like it was confusing. I always had a feeling that there's something that I'm not being told, because I'm a woman and I have sexual desires. But I guess it's also in the movies and music and in the media, like men singing about sex like a conquest. Or I recently tried to watch the movie Wedding Crashers, and I couldn't even get through it because it's just about these
So
men like
cringe.
lying
Hmm.
to women so they'll have sex, which is that even informed consent? So there's all these things
Mm.
normalized in the media that just, oh yeah, I remember the movie Animal House. I watched that when I was like 13, and that was so difficult, where like there's this guy who's debating whether to rape this woman who's drunk,
Mm.
and there's a devil and angel on his shoulder, and
Ugh.
that's scary. It's like, is that how men think? That it's just so hard for them not to rape? So I
Oh
think it was
my
all of
God.
those things.
Yeah. Wow. What are your thoughts on like the media portraying things like that? Do you think it's good because then women have this like sense of discernment within them? Like that we're not living in la la land thinking that a lot of men are good and only a small portion of them are like that? Or do you think it's like not like helpful at all? From like your professional opinion, what are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely not helpful when it's done in that way where it's normalized. Like there's this regular guy, and I actually forget how it ends, but I think like he actually might end up with her at the end or something.
Oh my God.
I
No.
forget. Don't quote. Well, I guess this is by nature I'll be quoted. But like something it's just not depicted as a bad thing. It's like he does the right thing and he brings her home. He's congratulated for it.
Oh,
If we're
that's
gonna
awful.
yeah, like if we're gonna depict sexual assault, it should be depicted as something that's unequivocally bad, that's, that hurts
I mean, it
the
should be
other
like
person.
even the thought of it means that that man probably should not be in a relationship with a woman. Like his nature isn't worthy of companionship.
Yeah, and that movie was all about frat boy culture,
Oh,
which I
yeah.
think media like that encourages the normalization of that behavior within that culture.
I mean, just Playboy, right? Hugh Hefner being this like idolized man for having so many young women who, yeah, they had choice, but did they really when they are single mothers and, they have a way to make money and like have a home or like whatever? Like, what are your thoughts on how society is shifting from ever since he passed away, truly? Like, I don't think there has been like a replacement of that, thank God. So, like, what are your thoughts on like, is society improving or is it just masked as such?
I think it is improving. Yeah, Hugh Hefner is a prime example of someone who said he was liberating women, but was actually oppressing them.
Mhm.
And, he said all these things like it's normal and natural for men to objectify women. That's what makes the world go round. He said that. And he said all these things that, then he claimed to be fighting for women's liberation, which, he did do some things to speak up for abortion rights and whatnot, but it's so superficial when it's like when liberation means looking at
Also,
women.
he's speaking up for abortion rights because he is spreading his seed and doesn't want to have so many children.
Right. It's
Like, it's self beneficial for him to do that.
Right. About a year ago, I toured the Playboy headquarters because
Oh
they
my God.
wanted to like journalists to get to know them. And it was
Yeah.
interesting. I asked the guy there, what do you think of working for this company given its history? And he said, I'm actually gay and this is the most accepting workplace I've had. So I was like, that's good. So I think there is a move towards sexual liberation in a way that is less based on the male gaze and more based on just everyone being able to be true to their own desires. But I still think the male gaze gets replicated. I write about that in my book, Going to Clothing Optional Resort.
When I was reading about that, yeah, I thought that was so crazy because what you said was they claim to be like for women first and then they have like images of like women all over their interior design. Share a little bit about that experience actually because you wrote it beautifully in the book about how you were expecting it to be a one way and it actually was the total opposite.
Yeah, my first experience. So there are these resorts that are clothing optional, which means usually there's a sexual theme. They attract people like swingers who are couples looking for a third or looking to play with another couple. The first one that I ever went to was Hedonism in Jamaica. I was there by myself and it was very uncomfortable. I was told there that it's a place for women to empower themselves and that the women rule the place. My first entry into it, I saw statues and photos and paintings of naked women. I got to my hotel, there was porn on, and it was two women giving a guy a blowjob. When I took off my clothes, which I thought was an opportunity to be naked and not be sexualized immediately, there were men, including staff members, staring at my boobs, telling me I actually actually had a boyfriend at the time, and because I was going for work, and like they were like, your
Yeah.
boyfriend's not here, when I said, no, I have a boyfriend. And just a lot of entitlement, just one guy touching my boob, one just putting his hand on my inner thigh.
Are there no rules and regulations or like anything at these resorts that is there to protect women from advances that are not welcomed?
You would think. I wasn't told very much. One woman there did say there was one instance where a guy was like trying to make moves on a woman who wasn't interested, and she eventually yelled and people came to help her. I think they could have been much clearer. I got no talk about consent. They could have told me in the beginning, if anyone does anything without consent, please let us know, or you're not allowed to do anything without consent. Enthusiastic, yes. Like even that would have been enough if they just given me a short talk in the beginning and everyone else. And at the time, I'm more assertive than I was then. At the time, I probably would have come up to them anyway and told them about it. But I think when you're in that environment and there's alcohol and everyone's being kind of flirty and you're just, again, taught to think this is normal, I guess that it's just normal for men to just come up to women and touch them. And I guess I kind of asked for it for being in this space, which is a prevalent way of thinking throughout sex positive communities. I've also had sex parties where men just came up to me and grabbed my ass because they assume you're there. So we have consent, which sex positivity is not you giving consent for everything. It's you actually having the chance to pursue what you want and not what you don't want. But I used to feel like, gosh, I'm in this environment. Am I even allowed to say something? But you are, because you're not agreeing to
Yeah.
do everything with everyone.
Do you still attend these type of resorts or events?
The last time I did I can remember a time about a year and a half ago, I went to a local clothing optional resort in LA, or not in LA, in Desert Hot Springs, a bit south of LA. That one was not as problematic, actually. I think I've become more assertive. I mean, there were definitely a lot of guys assuming that I'm going to fuck them because I'm there, but I was like, no, dude, I'm just going to go eat because tired.
Literally. And then were they respectful of that?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, I haven't been to those lately. To be honest, often it's this environment where there's a lot of people looking to get laid, and you feel like because you're there, like you should do something. There's not always really people I actually feel attracted to or have a connection with. It got a little bit old.
In your perfect scenario, as this like sexologist, as an expert in this field, like if you were to create a sex positive event or retreat or some sort, what are some things that you would do differently than the ones that you've attended?
So one rule that drives me crazy in these communities is no single men.
Mm.
It is a rule. So it's part of this whole swinger culture where there's usually a couple. There's a lot of heterosexual couples looking to get with a woman, and they see single men as predatory. And I think this
Mm.
is very discriminatory against straight women who go there, and they like have to either explore their bisexual side. That's pretty much the only option. Or like there's a couple guys, there's like not that many high quality guys. The only guys there are, husbands of women, and often they're a package deal. And so I would do away with that rule. Yeah, there's a lot of homophobia within that community in general. Like you never see guys hooking up with each other. It's always women. There's a lot of gender norms replicated. I think
Also, like, why does it have to be a homosexual experience if it's like a man that's a husband and a single guy, but then the wife isn't bi or lesbian? That label doesn't happen, right?
right. I think it has to do with the normalization of just women are considered the beautiful ones. So everyone's supposed to be into women. And like, there's nothing wrong with somebody wanting that, but it's frustrating when it's so uneven. Plenty of single men and maybe some kind of activity or exercise. So I actually had a friend throw a party where first I gave a talk about consent, and then she did exercises where they had different props like feather ticklers, and I forget what else the props were, but it was different textures we could play with to like,
Mm.
and we sort of paired up with someone, and it wasn't even really sexual. It was just like, how do you feel about this sensation? But it's a way because it's super awkward. So having an activity like that to break the ice, and also to not have pressure that you're going to go straight to sex, I think is very helpful.
Do they not have activities at all?
Not really. The typical
That's
sex
crazy.
party, there's usually drinks, maybe food, and a play area where people, engage in
I got it.
sexual
Yeah.
play.
But you're
But
right. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. So, can we talk a little bit about foreplay and the importance of it and not needing to go straight from? I think that's why so many wives, honestly, who I talk to, are not wanting to have sex because it's like foreplay doesn't start, first of all, in the bedroom. It starts in the morning, like from the moment you wake up to the moment you are getting ready, right? What are some ways that we can normalize and how do we do it actually? Do you have some tips for how to have foreplay outside of the bedroom?
sexting is a good way to do that, to start letting your partner know what
Yeah.
you're looking forward to. Let's see, cuddling, taking showers together, taking baths together, giving each other massages.
Yeah.
You can give a massage with coconut oil and then have it transition to an erotic massage. And some of it is like I was talking about cultivating your own sexual energy and keeping yourself excited by things like dancing and putting on lotion or anything sensual that kind of keeps you feeling good in your body. It's like you're at a simmer, and so bringing you to a boil is less of a journey than if you were cold.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Let's talk a little bit about intimacy beyond just physical connection. What are some ways to be intimate emotionally, mentally? Like, what does that look like?
My favorite definition of intimacy that I've read is sharing something that most people are not let in on. So if you have any kind of secret, not necessarily a big secret, but something you feel a little embarrassed about, don't tell people often. Telling people that can be a way to create intimacy. There are some card games that you can get that have questions for couples to answer or even friends. There are also apps where you can look up basically different question prompts, or there's the 36 questions to fall in love. There was a New York Times article about them a while ago. They were in a study where people asked each other these questions, and it created intimacy, and I think in one case actually made people fall in love. But yeah, so if couples want to look up those questions and bring those to dinner and have a deep conversation based on them, that's one way to create intimacy.
You said you're writing a second book. What is that one about and how is it different than the first one?
The second book, Eve's Blessing, is about women's pleasure and pain, specifically the way that our pain is normalized, not just our
Mm,
pain, but our pleasurelessness. Like I was saying, this idea that it's normal not to orgasm, and also that it's normal to experience things like period pain, pain the first time you have sex, childbirth pain, and even symptoms of chronic illness often get shrugged off in women. And
yeah.
so it's about this myth, which I tie back to misinterpretations of the quote unquote curse put on Eve in the Garden of Eden, which wasn't actually a curse. There was no passage that said God cursed Eve, but we take it to be that women are cursed. And I talk about how ancient influences like religion, ancient Greek philosophers, and their idea of women as incomplete men still influence medicine and popular views of gender today. And that's sort of the first part. And then the second part talks about how women are disproving this and how women are leading what I call orgasmic lives. How I interviewed a bunch of women who had orgasmic births and who have all kinds of different orgasms and pleasure during sex, who have pleasurable periods, and who just enjoy living in their bodies. Yeah,
That's
I'm
beautiful.
I'm wrapping that book up right now. I'm like in the weeds of the references, which is the most annoying part.
Yeah, I believe
But
that.
hopefully it's expected to come out next year.
Did you feel like the experience of writing this one versus the second one was different for you energetically or in your own personal life or experience?
I like to make the analogy between books and childbirth. And I told myself,
Yeah.
since this one is all about orgasmic birth and not having childbirth pain, I want it to be like an orgasmic birth for me.
Mm.
I definitely struggle a lot with workaholism, and that's like actually writing a book in a way that isn't maddening for me is difficult. Um,
Yeah.
I really struggled, like, the last leg of writing Subjectified. I was writing, like, I don't know, 15, 16 hours some day just to
Oh my
like
gosh.
get it all exactly as I wanted. And I remember the screen would become blurry. I'd be looking at it so much. So I tried with this one to pace myself a bit more and to, yeah, this spring especially. I'm also in school, so I lightened my schedule. I like
Mm,
planned a few days that were just for myself and like I gave myself a little more time to write it. I think I actually made the deadline 9 months from when I started because I wanted to
I
feel
love
like
that.
birthing a
A birth.
baby.
Mm,
I'll be honest, I'm really struggling still. Like, I was just complaining to my roommate. Like, I just, especially at this stage, fact checking everything, it just like makes you crazy.
I believe it. If you didn't do it in book form, is there something else that you would recommend so that it wouldn't be such like a gruesome process? If you could put this information out in the world without needing to do it this way, like what have you thought about any other ways you would spread your message?
I think my life is my way of putting this information out in the world. It's
Writing.
experiencing all the pleasure that my body has to offer, which starts with taking care of myself and prioritizing myself, which I'm doing the best I can do with, and like being a living, breathing example of an orgasmic life.
Yeah.
And
The
that's something.
embodiment of what you're writing about.
Yeah, that's something I'm still working on, but it is my plan after I'm done with this. Because we're taught, like, if we're not working 8 hours a day, we're lazy or something like that. I've really been questioning that. I think, like,
Yeah, I've been questioning that for years. I learned my human design is a projector, which means I actually am a disservice to others if I am overworking and working 8 hours a day. I'm just not at my most optimal energetic self. Do you know your human design?
mine is projector too.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, we do our best work in 3 to 4 hours in a day. You can work more if you desire to, if you're feeling it, the energy to do it, but we actually get a lot more done in less time because when we are working, it's like focused, really fruitful work. And when I learned that about myself, so I left corporate America because of burnout, which is what started my journey of learning about my energy and my capacity and like, who am I and what am I here to do and all of the things. And I learned that if I work 4 hours a day versus 8 hours a day, I actually don't really get more work done because my best work is done in those 4 hours. And then after that, it's just kind of like little nitty gritty things here and there that aren't really moving the needle forward. How has that been for you?
It's been a long time since I've even experimented with a lighter work schedule. I
Mm,
mean, I think I can remember when I first started writing, I would get all my writing done for a while before 11 a.m. or so. And I loved that. And I would do like sometimes like 5 or 6 articles before 11 a.m. And then I
yeah.
would just hang out.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to
That's
go back.
projector energy. That is your most optimal energetic way of working and being.
Yeah. I once this book is done, I want to really like take time where I'm not working at all because I think that's
Hmm.
also often when ideas are born, when you give your
Agreed.
mind time
Well,
to
I
rest. And
it's a fact, right? Creativity and intuition thrive in spaciousness. If you are loading your schedule up with all of these to-dos, your feminine essence, which is the creative you, your sensuality, your sexuality, all of those things actually don't have any room to flourish at all. It's essential for our whole selves to show up to the best of our ability. And I think that overworking is a condition that we have received from capitalism to produce, produce, produce. And if not, we're not valuable. And my whole journey has been to remember how valuable and worthy I am, not from producing, but for simply being who I am. And like that has improved my relationship with my husband so much more because I don't feel this like pressure all the time. I'm relaxed, I'm free. I'm just actively working on deprogramming and deconditioning what society is pushing on us because not all of us are the same.
I don't know if I should share this, but I had a DMT trip about this. Do you want me to
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I talk about shrooms all the time. Psychedelics has like saved my life. Yes, please.
I'm still making sense of it. It was just a few weeks ago, but so it can create a purging process. So for those who don't know, 5-MeO-DMT, it's from the venom of a toad, and it's vaporized, and you breathe it in through a straw. People call it a 10-minute meeting with God. For me, it's usually more embodied than that and
Mm.
more about me than it is about God necessarily. But
Well, God is in you, obviously.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it started like a purging process. So I got sick and I was spitting things out and I was like pointing to my jaw and I said like, what did I say? I was like spitting things out and I was like, that's from arguing about orgasms. And I was pointing to my jaw and I was saying, my jaw is tired of arguing about orgasms. And
Wow.
and I kept saying, you can't argue with the body. I've been arguing about orgasms, but you can't argue with the body. So I was like, what was that? And then 2 days later, I woke up and it came to me. I'd been spending my career arguing for women's right to pleasure and women's ability to feel pleasure, ironically, often in a way that caused me pain through overworking, like we're talking about. And I
Yeah.
realized that the best argument for women's pleasure was my own pleasure.
Yeah.
But like exhausting myself arguing about women's pleasure was also part of my pleasure. Like I saw it
Yeah.
all non judgmentally. Like there was some sapiosexual thing going on that I had to do that. I almost had to wear myself out to get to the next stage
Mm.
where that I see emerging, after this book, where I'm focused more on my own pleasure. I'm building the life that brings me pleasure and allowing whatever art I create to flow from that.
Fuck yeah. And I think that is going to be your life's greatest work. That is birthed from a place of pure flow and joy and peace and ease and connection to your body, your essence, the universe wants us to be relaxed and thriving because when we're vibrating at a higher frequency, which is the ripple effect that is creating this new way of life. What we were talking about off screen earlier about Pluto entering Aquarius and the energy's not wanting us to remember that you actually don't have to work hard at all and you don't need to have a 9 to 5. And obviously capitalism, like what the fuck is going to happen to capitalism if we're all realizing that this isn't the only way to be? And like it's going to be interesting. And it starts with us going through the journey of saying no more and trying a different way to be and to create and to express and to thrive, and then showing the world of what that looks like. We're the leaders, the first ones to do this work and do it our way. And I'm excited. I'm so excited for your next journey. I'm excited to see, of course, read your next book, but then continue to see what is being birthed through you as you return to your natural rhythms of life.
And I guess that ties into the theme of my first book. One way we objectify ourselves is making ourselves machines. And
Mm.
the ultimate subjectification is living a life based on your pleasure.
Mic drop. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Exactly. Suzannah, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure and a joy learning from you today. How can my audience find you and work with you?
You could find me on Twitter, Suzannah Weiss, Instagram, Weiss Suzannah, my website, SuzannahWeiss.com. You can find my book, Subjectified, Becoming a Sexual Subject, on Amazon.
I'll drop all of the links below. Thank you so, so much. And I hope everybody got some nuggets of wisdom to not be a machine and to lead a pleasure-filled life, because it is our birthright to enjoy our time on earth. So, Suzannah, thank you again so much and have a great day.
Yeah.